Coming up today, South Korea warns North Korea that it will respond strongly to any provocations after Pyongyang raises the stakes with a submarine-launched ballistic missile test. President Park Geun-hye will travel to Washington in June for summit talks with U.S. President Barack Obama. Prior to her trip, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is due in Seoul next week for talks that will cover North Korea's latest provocations. Plus, Greece's government has begun the transfer of 750 million euros in debt interest payments to the International Monetary Fund. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Tuesday, May 12th, here in Seoul. Thanks ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this morning, the South Korean government has warned North Korea in the strongest possible terms that it will respond strongly and swiftly to any further provocations after Pyongyang experimented with firing a submarine-launched ballistic missile. Na Hyung-kyung starts us off.
Responding to concerns about not having effective missile defense systems, South Korea's defense chief said Seoul and Washington have the combined military capability to counter North Korea's provocations.
South Korea and the U.S. have been sharing information to assess North Korea's submarine-launched ballistic missiles. The South Korean military will halt Pyongyang's chain of provocation through relentless countermeasures.
This comes after North Korea said it has successfully conducted a test of a submarine-launched ballistic missile over the weekend as part of the regime's expanding arsenal. At a regular press briefing on Monday, Defense Ministry spokesman Kim Min-seok said the military is seriously concerned about the situation and urged Pyongyang to immediately cease development of weapons. But he also mentioned that it seemed to be an early-stage test.
The North's latest ejection test was a novice effort, shooting a dummy projectile Soviet-era imitation from an underwater platform.
Other military sources say the North will be able to equip the Sinpo-class submarines with SLBMs in 2 to 3 years, though they add that it will take Pyongyang about 4 to 5 years to have fully operational SLBMs. The chairman of South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff will meet with General Curtis Scaparrotti, the commander of U.S. Forces Korea, on Tuesday to enhance efforts to strengthen deterrence against the recent threat. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
North Korea has been lauding its closer ties with Russia, dismissing concerns of a possible feud between the two countries after Kim Jong-un failed to show up for Moscow's War Victory event last weekend. The North state-run Korean Central News Agency reported on Monday that its ceremonial head of state, Kim Young-nam, who attended the event on behalf of the young leader, Kim, met with Russian President Vladimir Putin last Friday. It said that during the meeting, the envoy delivered a message written personally by Kim Jong-un to Putin. The report added that Kim Young-nam and Putin exchanged views on boosting bilateral relations, which it said are entering a new stage in various fields, including politics, economy, and culture. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is coming to South Korea next week. The U.S. State Department confirmed Kerry will make a 2-day trip to Seoul from this Sunday. He will meet with President Park Geun-hye and Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se to discuss a wide range of bilateral issues, including matters of regional security. And President Park Geun-hye is scheduled to visit Washington in mid-June. Her office has not officially announced the itinerary, but diplomatic sources say she'll meet U.S. President Barack Obama for summit talks. On her second visit to Washington, President Park is expected to seek a stronger alliance with the U.S. and discuss ways to curb North Korea's nuclear and missile development programs. Both leaders will also talk about Seoul's membership in the US-led regional Trans-Pacific Partnership Treaty, especially after South Korea recently joined as a founding member the China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon will visit South Korea next week for the World Education Forum. According to Seoul's Foreign Ministry, Ban will arrive on Monday afternoon and attend the UN event on Tuesday. There, he will hold a joint press conference with UNESCO Secretary-General Irina Bokova. During his 5-day stay, the UN chief will meet with President Park Geun-hye next Wednesday and also hold talks with Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se to discuss issues ranging from Korea-UN relations, climate change and the security situation on the Korean peninsula. The UN chief, Ban Ki-moon, will also visit Vietnam, Ireland and Belgium before returning to New York. Korea's National Assembly kicked off another extraordinary session on Monday to try and settle some unfinished business, but ironing out their deep differences over pension reforms remains a major challenge for both the ruling and opposition parties. Ji Myung-gil reports.
The two rival parties agreed to continue holding talks on the civil servants' pension bill, but they're still far apart on reforms to the much larger National Pension Service. The ruling's Henry Party said lawmakers can't increase public pension payouts without extensive public consultation.
In order to raise the public pension payouts, we need the people's consent. But we know that reforming the National Pension Service is necessary as the fund will be depleted by 2060.
The ruling party also maintained that these reforms should not be part of the bill to change the civil service pension system. However, the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy is sticking to a previous agreement made with the rival party's senior leaders.
We will not give up raising the income replacement rate of the national pension to 50% in order to enhance pensioner income security.
After facing criticism from the presidential office of Cheongwade, the ruling party backed away from the original agreement to increase the national pension payouts by 10% and attach those reforms to the civil service reform bill. Cheongwade has reiterated that the NPAD's national pension proposal would increase tax burdens on working subscribers and would require more than $1 trillion in taxes over the next 65 years. The NPAD slammed Cheongwade for meddling in parliamentary affairs and held the ruling party accountable for failing to pass the combined pension reform bill in the previous session. The two parties will hold a plenary voting session on Tuesday to approve urgent economy-related bills that were not passed in April. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Now, Japan's ruling coalition has reached agreement on legislation that will expand the scope of its military's role overseas. The country's ruling Liberal Democratic Party and its junior partner, Komeito, agreed Monday on a package of bills that are going to loosen restrictions imposed on the Japanese military since the end of World War II and allow Japan to exercise on a limited scope the right to collective self-defense. And that term refers to a country being able to come to the military aid of an ally under attack. The proposals are expected to be approved by the cabinet later this week and be submitted to the current Diet session. If the bills pass, it will allow Japan to contribute more to the US-Japan alliance in accordance with the recently revised Japan-US Defense Cooperation guidelines. President Park Geun-hye marked the opening of Korea's 10th Innovation Center in the country's eastern Gangwon-do province on Monday as part of the president's Creative Economy Drive. These regional centers are connecting with the country's conglomerates to help local SMEs and startups grow and expand overseas. The president described big data as the new capital of the creative economy, which can create jobs, but also only with creativity and innovative ideas. She then vowed to set up big data portals and markets to foster the development of experts in this field. And staying with that story, and the Korean government wants this centre to crunch the constant reams of data flowing around the internet to help local firms find more opportunities and boost their bottom lines. Our Song Ji-son reports.
It's a sector that's currently expanding at a rate of 30% a year. That's how big and promising the global market for big data is. By 2017, the value of the worldwide market is anticipated to top $31 billion. The sheer volume of data created online these days can be used to reduce production costs and to set up targeted marketing strategies, but only when the data is analyzed efficiently. That's where Korea's latest Creative Economy Innovation Center steps in. Located on the campus of Gangwon National University, the center will function as a one-stop portal for gathering, trading, and researching big data.
Big data itself is not that valuable. Mining and utilizing that data is what really matters. We'll make Gangwon-do province a center for gathering and processing data and making the figures meaningful.
For the mission, Korea's biggest internet portal, Naver, will help local startups entering the big data industry. The center will also work in tandem with Korea's other innovation center branches to help traditional manufacturing sectors utilize big data for bigger profits. With all 17 innovation centers set to open the first half this year, and synergy growing between these centers following each launch, the government's creative economy drive is taking off across the nation. Song Ji-son, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's service industry is lagging in comparison to other OECD countries. According to a report by the Korea International Trade Association, the local service sector made up less than 60% of the nation's GDP in 2013. That's unchanged from 2005. Service industries in the United States, Britain and France hover around 80%. The report also points out that Korea's labour productivity in the service sector was only half that of the US. Low production was attributed to the increasing number of workers in traditional service jobs such as accommodations and retail. The association added that Korea needs to improve regulations in order to boost investment, as well as fostering promising high-value businesses in order to expand the sector. Greece has agreed to pay back €750 million or $830 million in debt interest to the International Monetary Fund. Athens says the balance will be paid in full by the deadline for the payment, which is Tuesday local time. The money has been taken from public sector cash balances and reserves, and that includes the country's pension reserves. The move comes as Eurozone finance ministers have been thrashing out the conditions of Greece's final bailout installment of $8 billion. Ministers, however, say Greece has made progress on balancing its books, but more work needs to be done. Greece is handing the money to the IMF, despite the country's finance minister warning that Greece could face a cash crisis within a couple of weeks. A highly respected American investigative journalist has claimed the US government's account on the raid of the former al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden was a work of fiction, a complete fairy tale. Seymour Hersh, who won the Pulitzer Prize in the 1970s, says the US got to bin Laden with Pakistan's help, and US President Barack Obama misled the public about how the US killed the terror leader. The Obama administration has always claimed the 2011 mission was a top-secret, risky US action, but Hersh says it was a joint operation between the US and Pakistani military intelligence. Hersh attributes his information for these claims to a retired general of the Pakistani intelligence service and several unidentified sources in the US and Pakistan. Responding to the claims, the White House said Hersh's claims are baseless assertions. Now, with drones becoming more and more advanced, so is the technology used to control them. A group of researchers from Korea have developed a way to operate unmanned drones by simply touching your clothes. Our Sun Jung-in has more.
A robot spider crawls across the room, but is not operated by a joystick. Instead, the controller simply presses a device on the cuff of his clothing to move the robot in the direction he wants. And this unmanned aerial drone, it starts to fly at the command of a man touching his fingers while wearing some special gloves. The secret is in a smart fiber sensor that allows the users to control the devices through the amount of pressure they apply.
We attached the pressure sensor onto the fingertips of gloves and programmed it so that when pressure is applied, the user can control the robot's movement wirelessly.
The smart fiber sensor thread, which is coated with nanoparticles, looks no different from regular thread. This means it can be attached to virtually any type of clothing.
The thread we made can be used as a wire and as a sensor. Its thinness and versatility means it can perform a number of functions when attached to regular clothing or gloves.
The research team is in the process of filing for domestic and overseas patents. It plans to commercialize the touch-activated technology within 3 years. 손정인, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. Have a great day, and thank you, as always, for watching. We do hope to see you at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye.